So looking at this example, just a quick reminder, to add and subtract fractions, you always need to find the common denominator. Remember, the denominator is the bottom number of a fraction. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, LCM, the least common multiple. Remember, that's what that stands for. But the reason we're talking about that now is if you have two different denominators, you need to find the least common multiple of those denominators in order to find a common denominator. You'll see that in example 3. For now though, finding the sum or difference of these fractions is really easy because if you notice, we have common denominators in all of these problems. And whenever you have a common denominator with a fraction, it makes it really easy because all you then do is add and subtract the numerators. Remember though, when you add or subtract, the denominator doesn't change. So you might want to write this down. When you add or subtract fractions, the denominator won't change. And when I say that, I'm not saying you might not have to change the denominator, but once you go to actually add or subtract them, the denominator won't change. So for example, I do not add 5 plus 5. The denominator is going to be 5. And all you do is you add or subtract the numerators. So 3 plus 1, that gives me 4. So 3/5 plus 1/5 gives me 4/5. Down here, common denominator, so I already know when I add or subtract, the denominator won't change. So I know it's going to be 16, and 7 minus 1 gives me 6. And hopefully you remember reducing fractions, so 7/16, if I divided each the numerator and the denominator by 2, I would get 3/8. I always am going to want you to write fractions in simplest form, so if you can reduce them, you need to reduce them. And remember, you do that by either multiplying or dividing the numerator and the denominator by the same thing. This is also how we converted fractions. We just multiplied instead of divided. Here, 4/9 minus 7/9, I have my common denominator of 9, so I already know it's going to be 9. 4 minus 7 gives me -3, and this is another example where I can reduce my fraction. I can divide each of these by 3. -3 divided by 3 gives me -1. 9 divided by 3 gives me 3. And I'm not going to always make you show this work because you've been doing this before, hopefully. So if you do just go like this, -3/9 equals -1/3, I'm fine with that. I don't need to see this, but if you want to show this work, that's absolutely fine. Looking at example 3, we're going to find the sum or difference, and as I said earlier, I want it in simplest form. Here's where it gets a little trickier. We don't have a common denominator. When you don't have a common denominator, you need one before you can add or subtract fractions. So here's where we need to find that LCM, or least common multiple. So I have 2 and I have 3. The easiest way to find the least common multiple is to just start going out with factors of 2, or multiples of 2, not factors. Multiples of 2, which would be 2, 4, 6, 8, and then do multiples of 3, which would be 3, 6, 9, 12. And hopefully you can see already our least common multiple would be 6. That's the first number that appears in both of the list. That's what the least common multiple is. And to get my least common multiple, I'm just going to do 1/2. And since I know my LCM was 6, I know I want the denominator to be 6. And then it's just kind of like filling in pieces of a puzzle. To convert this fraction, I have to multiply 2 times something to get 6. And 2 times 3 is 6. And if you want to know a little trick, you can always just count how many times you had to multiply, do multiples of 2. 1, 2, 3. 2 times 3 is 6. And if I multiply my denominator by 3, I have to multiply the numerator by 3 as well. So 1/2 would be 3/6. And then to convert 2/3 to have 6 as the denominator, I have to multiply 3 times 2 to get 6. If you multiply the denominator by 2, you have to multiply the numerator by 2, so you get 4 sixths. Now I have a common denominator, so I can do 1/2, which is really 3 sixths, plus 2/3, which is really 4 sixths, which will give me 3 plus 4 is 7. Remember, when you add and subtract, denominator doesn't change. I get 7 sixths. I'm okay with this as an improper fraction. If you wanted to convert this to a mixed number, you could write it as 1 1/6. Either of these answers is fine with me. Down here we have 3/8 minus 1/3. It's going to be the same thing. We're going to find the least common multiple of 3. Let me use the color, it shows up better. 3 and 8. So for 3, I'm going to go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. And then for 8, I'm going to go 8, 16, 24. And right there is my least common multiple. They each have 24 in that list, so I need to convert both of these. 3/8. To get that to have a denominator of 24, I do 8 times 3. So that means I have to multiply my numerator by 3 as well, so I get 9 24ths. For 1/3, I want that to have a denominator of 24. 3 times 8 is 24, so I have to multiply 1 times 8 as well. So I get 8 24ths. And now when I want to do this actual subtraction, it's not 3/8 minus 1/3. I'm really going to write it as 9 24ths minus 8 24ths. And now that I have a common denominator, I can subtract. Remember, denominator won't change. 9 minus 8 is 1. And we got 1 24th as our answer. Last one, 2/5 minus 3/4. Hopefully you're okay with finding the LCM. I'm just going to tell you the LCM is 20 for these two. And I'm not going to take the time to show all the work of converting them. I'm going to tell you 2/5 is the same thing. I'd have to multiply each of these by 4, so it'd be 8 20ths. And 3/4, I'd have to multiply each of these by 5 to have a denominator of 20. 3 times 5 gives me 15. So now I'm going to do 2/5, which is 8 20ths, minus 3/4, which is 15 20ths. Common denominator means I can add or subtract. Denominator will not change. 8 minus 15 gives me -7, and my answer is -7 20ths. Hopefully this is a review and not too tricky. As long as you follow these steps, these problems aren't too bad.